These are my Mars Yard 2.0, a collaboration between Nike and Tom Sachs, and they originally released in 2017. At the time, you had to go to New York and complete a training course in order to actually obtain or buy these sneakers. Now, at the time, I was not in the States. I was on my honeymoon in Paris and was not able to participate. Otherwise, I would have been right there if I had the opportunity. Now, what I will say though is my wife was gracious enough to get me a pair or buy me a pair at resale in August of that year. And I told her from the very start, I know that the sneakers were a little bit on the pricey side. At that time, we paid $700, and obviously in hindsight, if I would have known what was going to happen in terms of the resale on these sneakers, maybe I would have bought multiples. But either way, I told her from the very start that I had no intentions on ever putting these back in their actual sneaker box. These were sneakers that I intended to wear the way they were intended to be worn. Originally, the shoe was intended to be a more utility-based shoe. It wasn't intended to be for any type of performance or basketball or anything like that. It was intended to be worn all day. It wasn't supposed to be flashy. And in the very beginning, when people had these shoes on, if you didn't know what they were, they weren't something you were going to see often. And so I guess over the years, they grew more and more in hype. So when you do wear these out, you do usually get looks. Now for me, I told my wife from the very beginning, again, that I wasn't intending to ever put these shoes away. They were going to be worn for what they were intended for. I was intending to beat them up and just really wear them for that purpose. They've been everywhere with me. I've traveled all over with them. Super comfortable pair of shoes. They are very, very basic, I guess you could say. Well made, high quality materials. They have, high quality suedes and leathers and, things of that nature. In terms of the cushioning, it's just a foam. I believe it's an EVA midsole with a rubber outsole, undyed rubber, undyed leathers, and two different types of insoles. Unfortunately, I only have my mesh insole with me today. My other insoles are in storage. They're a cork insole, and the explanation of including a cork insole is more antimicrobial. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. For me, I didn't notice the difference between the two, but the intent was that if you wanted to wear your shoes barefoot, you could do that without having to worry about any types of smells and things like that come with wearing your shoes barefoot. As you can see, the upper of the shoe is extremely worn. You can look on the toe box and it's super dirty, around the shoe, extremely worn. Even the tongue, you got some of the foam that has just ripped out. A lot of the fabric is curling over itself. But what I will say is these shoes have really, really held up over the years. Again, I've had these shoes for about 5 years. You can see the outsole here is extremely worn. I've considered doing a sole swap with, I believe it's like the Desert Boot from Nike that uses the same exact tooling for the outsole and midsole. But either way, I might keep them the way they are because the more worn they are, the better they look, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I will never be able to buy another pair because I can't spend that kind of money on a pair of sneakers, no matter how much I love them. These are the NikeCraft Tom Sachs General Purpose Shoe. The box itself is very reminiscent of the original Mars Yard 2.0 box. I can't say that I know what the original Mars Yard 1.0 looks like in terms of the box itself, but I will say that the box is, very reminiscent of the Mars Yard 2.0. On the top of the box, you have NikeCraft with the Tom Sachs, I guess you could say font with his own Nike swoosh and the little squigglies through it. Not really sure what that's supposed to be for or intended to be. On the front of the box, you have General Purpose Shoe, Tom Sachs, his signature, along with NikeCraft and the Nike swoosh again. On the back, you have NikeCraft with the Nike swoosh again in the Tom Sachs handwriting, and then on the front, Tom Sachs signature with the General Purpose Shoe. Now on the front label, you have the Tom Sachs signature, General Purpose Shoe, NikeCraft with the Nike swoosh. Overall, it's a pretty simple looking container, if you want to call it that. It's not intended to be anything flashy, and I think, as we've covered, the whole line for Tom Sachs has never been to be flashy. It's about utility. Shoes are what you wear, and they shouldn't be, drawing attention or anything like that. They should be about getting things done. Opening the box, has a little bit of print on the top lid, and it says NikeCraft shoes are manufactured to the exact specifications of champion athletes throughout the world. The design and construction of NikeCraft products support all the activities of your life and tell your story. NikeCraft shuns innovation for its own sake, but embraces it as a necessity. Top quality products fulfill their intended purpose while remaining as hard-wearing as possible. Before recycling, there is reuse. Before reuse, there is durability. On the inside of the box, you have the Tom Sachs 10 bullets. He has a little bit of literature covering the 10 bullets. If you want to read that, you can go to Tom Sachs's website to get a little bit more of information. Pretty intriguing things that he has on that website overall, and I guess we could say his whole belief system, but overall just a fun website to kind of browse and all of the art pieces and sculptures that he has. But in general, this is the GPS by Tom Sachs and Nike. So you saw on the Tom Sachs Mars Yard 2.0, you had red straps for the tongue and the heel. On these, there are blue straps. There is an off-white colored upper with a brown midsole or a gum colored midsole. On the bottom, you have that waffle racer outsole looking thing. What you also will see is that the Tom Sachs font or handwriting is actually debossed on the outsole, which is a cool touch because on the original shoe, it has a lot of that, his own drawings and things of that nature on that shoe. On the back, you have the Nike and logo embossed on the, I guess you can say on the tab. And then on the tongue itself is the Tom Sachs logo with a little bit of information on there. But overall, there's, touches from Tom Sachs all over. A lot of similarities between this shoe and the Mars Yard 2.0. As you can see on the side-by-side comparison, they are very different looking shoes, but in a way you can tell that they're related. They kind of look like family, or they're drawn inspiration from one another. Obviously the GPS drawing inspiration from the Mars Yard 2.0. Both are very, very utility based. They're not intended to be flashy, and you could easily miss them on the street. For the GPS, they could easily be mistaken for the Nike Waffle Racer, which the outsole looks like it's actually inspired by. But overall, the shoes aren't intended to be anything crazy or flashy. They're just intended to be worn so that you can get the things that you need to get done. But overall, I've been extremely happy with both shoes. Very happy with the GPS shoe, and I'm super excited for all the other colorways they have planned. Again, multiple colorways, including a pigeon dunk looking colorway with just like a gray with that orangey pull tab. So I guess we'll see when they do come out. Now, in terms of the fit, these will fit true to size comfortably. So whatever your regular size is, and for wide footers as well, I'm a wide footer. I went true to size. They do run in women's sizes, so they run a size and a half up. So whatever your size is, go a size and a half down. If you're looking on resale, prices are coming down, so I assume there were a lot of pairs out there to begin with. So you will have a good opportunity to get them at a more affordable price, so to speak, or you can just wait till August. But either way, obviously you won't have a chance to try these on in stores, but what I would recommend is going true to size. Cushioning in these aren't meant to be anything spectacular or flashy. Again, there's no Zoom Air, there's no Max Air in here, there's no Lunar Line, if that's even a thing anymore, or React, or the Joyride cushioning. These are just an EVA midsole, again, meant to just be worn all day. Nothing crazy, nothing bouncy, but just an EVA midsole, which isn't a bad thing. The midsole on the Mars Yard 2.0, I don't remember what kind of midsole it was. I have to assume it was probably EVA as well. They weren't exactly bouncy, but they weren't exactly firm or too firm. They were comfortable enough to walk around all day in, no matter what you were doing. Something I wanted to point out was the reinforced toe. You have a bit of reinforcement. It's not a fused material, or maybe it is a fused material if you want to look there. It is a mesh upper, but a little bit of reinforcement at the toe area. I guess for a little bit of extra protection for the wearer. You also have like that foam, like a very skinny, I guess, or slim foam padded tongue. It's not exactly the thickest tongue you could find out there. Obviously, like on Nike SBs, they're intended for that purpose. But this is a thinner tongue overall, meant to just protect you a little bit from any of the pinching that you get from the laces overall. But again, I think these are super breathable, as the materials on the Tom Sachs website says. The mesh is intended to be tight enough, not to be breathable, but tight enough to actually not let any water in or any water droplets. So a lot of utility in this shoe, a lot of usability, and a lot of protection for the wearer. In the heel cup area, there's a little bit of padding back there, and I'm assuming there's a little bit of protection for the wearer in terms of your Achilles tendon and the heel itself. They're reminiscent of the Yeezy 350 V1 Pirate Black, where that shoe was retroed, and on the second pair they actually added a little bit of padding. And maybe there was some input from wearers or from wear testers and things like that, but overall a little bit of padding is welcome. In the Mars Yard 2.0, there's nothing like it on there, so you don't have any actual padding. You just have a lot of leather, and I'll include that in B-roll. It's just leather back there, a little bit of padding behind the leather, but overall nothing much more than that. I would say that it didn't affect the way the shoe was worn. It didn't affect me at all. I wore them, and they were probably some of my most comfortable shoes I have in my collection. I know I said earlier that these shoes kind of look like the Nike Waffle Racer because they have that outsole, and that midsole is a little bit chunky as well, so it's very reminiscent of that. I would say in wearing them, they are very similar, or they look kind of similar to a golf shoe, or what my interpretation of a golf shoe would look like. But not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's that's what it reminds me of. But in general, on foot, it looks really, really good. I have no complaints whatsoever. In terms of pricing between the two shoes, the Mars Yard 2.0 came in at a retail price of $200, and that was only if you were able to get yourself a pair at retail. At that time, it's funny to think how things are now and how things were. At that time, $200 is a little bit on the higher side for shoes. Nowadays, that's about the going price for a lot of, I guess you could say, higher end shoes with higher end materials. For instance, the Yeezy 700 in that Wave Runner colorway kind of broke the mold and came in at $300 retail. Obviously, the Mars Yard 2.0 is now in the resale phase of the 7,000, 8,000 range. These are still, from what I understand, they're intended to be more of a general release shoe. So that, with that being said, hopefully a lot of people have the opportunity to buy them that want them. From what I've seen on social media, there will be several releases in different colorways, including a gray pigeon dunk colorway, or at least reminiscent of the pigeon dunk. But overall, this is a super simple shoe. Very clean, I would say high quality materials. It's supposed to have microfiber. You have the mesh on the toe box. It's supposed to have microfiber on the collar of the shoe. And around the toe and heel area, it looks and feels like suede, but I'm not entirely sure if they are. If they are, then great. If not, then it is what it is. At a retail price of $110, it's a very stark contrast in terms of what they offer you. But either way, there's a lot of quality in the shoe and the presentation for the retail packaging. But according to Tom Sachs, he has said that people who want the shoe won't have to resort to resale or resale channels to be able to get their own pair. They're going to be doing a restock in August. For me, I got in on the raffle that they did on the day of the release. And I didn't think I stood a chance of getting a pair just because it's Tom Sachs and what the Mars Yard means today. And I fortunately and luckily got an email giving me the opportunity to buy my pair at retail. It took about 2 weeks to come in. They came in this past Friday. I ordered them 2 weeks prior to this past Friday. But either way, I was super excited to get them in hand. They're kind of everything I was hoping for. I intend to wear these just like I did my Mars Yard 2.0. And until the Mars Yard 2.5 comes out, if that ever does come out with that reinforced toe, these will be my shoes that I just kind of intend to beat up. That's going to wrap it up there for me today. There's anything I missed or anything you want to know about with regard to the GPS or even the Mars Yard 2.0, leave a comment. But if you like this video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. But if you really, really like it, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching today. You all have a good day.